My name is Hai Nguyen. I'm co-founder of Affluence, the company behind Matrix. Today's webinar is focused on an introduction to Matrix, and then I also want to take this opportunity to share with you tips and tricks and all that to make sure you get the most out of the software. I want to mention as well that there's a chat section here. So if you have any questions whatsoever during the webinar, please feel free to send a message there and I'll do my best to address those questions afterwards. Okay. My goals for today, this is an introduction, so this is a guide for beginners, and I want to help you understand the basics of Matrix, and then also help you become more effective and efficient at prioritizing tasks, projects, and email. My goal is to ensure that when you walk away from this webinar or when you are off to Matrix, you're off to a good start and that you're using it in a way that is effective. And so you don't have to fumble around to find what features that you need. So hopefully that'll be a big outcome from this. I also want to help you envision what your work and life success may look like with Matrix, and then also emphasize on the features that I think are most important. As with any software, there's just so many capabilities, right, that's available. So I will give you some guidance on the features that I think are most effective, regardless of your role and function in terms of using the software. The tips and tricks to prioritize more effectively come from the fact that I've talked to thousands of customers over the years, and then also from my own usage of the system, because I rely on Matrix for everything that we have to do. And then lastly, to help you walking away feeling productive and have a strategy to be aligned with your team. Matrix works for the individual, works for the team, works for the entire organization. But if you look at how it all comes together, I do think the individual is the most important. So for everyone who's here and who's listening to this, the goal in all of this is to make you productive. And then if you're productive, everything else would fall into place. So why do you even prioritize? There's three reasons customers come to Matrix. The first is to be better at keeping track on the status of work across many areas of responsibilities, which we just have a lot on our plates, right? And it's so hard to be on top of everything, to know what it is that we need to work on. The second, at the team level, is to create alignments so that everyone knows what's important. So then if you are able to communicate to your coworkers what you think are the important things, and if they're able to communicate to you what they think are important things, then the goals of Matrix have been achieved. And then thirdly, to take back control on emails and meetings. We just have so many emails, so many meetings every single day. It is quite hard to stay productive in light of all of that. I find myself being interrupted so many times during the day that when I get back to my work, I have to go and rethink, okay, what's important again, and make sure that I focus on that. And the corollary to all of this is what happens when you don't prioritize. First, you lose sight on what's important and you work on the wrong things, or you feel busy, but you're not meeting your goals. And then you're completely overwhelmed by emails and meetings. So if you feel any of the challenges I brought up here, then I think I can show you how to use Matrix to tackle some of these problems. So what is Matrix? Matrix is a comprehensive email, priority, and project management software that together helps at three different levels. At the individual level, which again is the most important, is to help you prioritize your most important tasks and emails. The idea is just to have one central place to see everything that you have to do and understand what you need to work on right now. The second is that if we can help you understand what you need to work on, then we can help your entire team understand what they need to work on and ensure that there's that alignment. Imagine, if you walk into the office and you're talking to your manager and you're going to work on something that you think is important, but your manager thinks it's not, then there's that mismatch, right? And so most of the time we just let this be and it's under the radar. So Matrix makes it very explicit. So then when you guys are working together, you can be aligned from day one. Then what happens as you use Matrix more and more and you expand the usage across not just your team, but multiple teams, Matrix becomes a single source of truth to help everyone becomes more effective and more efficient. The key to this is actually retaining knowledge and then also helping with onboarding new people. I've seen customers face this challenge so many times, which is, they have employee turnover and then there's a complete lack of understanding of what this new employee should work on when they take over someone else's job. And so Party Matrix makes it possible to take these priorities, shift it over to somebody else, and then ensuring that the next people have the full context that they need to succeed. So Party Matrix works well across the entire spectrum. So what makes Party Matrix better than a lot of other solutions is that first, it's the only software that's Microsoft 365 security certified across the web app, Teams app, and Outlook app at the same time. We're also very deeply integrated into the Microsoft ecosystem. So if you use anything Microsoft, Party Matrix is almost a no-brainer because we work so well with Teams, Outlook, and also now Copilot. I do want to mention that you don't need Microsoft to actually use Party Matrix at all. It's just one of those things where we add a lot of value should you do that. Party Matrix also focuses on prioritization. That's front and center every step of the way. So when I talk about Party Matrix and I show you the product, you're going to see that, we talk about prioritization constantly because it's not just about tracking a list of things to do. That's very, very different, right? It's about doing the right things right, which I think is something that a lot of us don't spend enough time on. Party Matrix also provide people-centric collaboration, ensuring that you understand what you need to work on for a coworker. So imagine if you have direct reports, right? You're able to go and see what are all the things you have to do with that direct reports across your entire Party Matrix. Vice versa, if you work with a colleague across multiple projects, Party Matrix can give you that visibility from the perspective of people as opposed to just projects. And that's what makes Party Matrix pretty unique as well. Lastly, second to last, Party Matrix is available as a SaaS solution, a HIPAA compliant solution if you're in healthcare or life sciences. We also have Azure Government Cloud solution for those who, for state and local government. And then lastly, Party Matrix has some AI features that's focused specifically on helping you tackle challenges. So, we want to make sure that everything that we do is conducive towards making you more productive. So I'll try to show you some of the things that we're doing and then mention some of the things that we're doing in the future that might be very valuable to your work. Party Matrix is effective because it helps you determine what you need to work on now, what to work on later, and then what you need to delegate. So as you use Party Matrix more, it becomes the one place where everyone can go to know what needs to be done. So let's talk about the philosophy behind Party Matrix. There's a famous quote attributed to former President Eisenhower: "What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important." And what I really like about this quote is that it takes the things that we have to do and breaks it into the dimensions of importance and urgency. It's not just about what I have to do or what I should do because it's that last email that came in or that last ping that I got through my chat application or whatever. Instead, you need to look at from the perspective of importance and urgency. So what are the things that's important and urgent that I need to work on at this moment in time? And what are the things that are actually urgent but not actually important? And so tasks come in so many different flavors. And what happens is that if you're a human, like the vast majority of us, we get that last email, and that last email tends to be the first email that we respond to. So we come back from break or we start our day and we look at our list, we always tend to work on things that are last in and then first out. Instead, if we go and spend time thinking about what are the things I need to do to work on for my goals for this week, for this quarter, and that's the thing that you start with every single day, then you're going to find that your work is a lot more productive. So there's something called the Eisenhower Matrix, which is a simple yet powerful time management framework that takes all the things that you do and instead put it into these 4 quadrants based on importance and urgency. So what that does is it helps you prioritize your task, but also make the most out of your time. If we decide to work on everything, then it doesn't really matter, right? But if you have limited time and you have more things to do than the resources to do it, then it's truly very important for you to decide what are the things you should hone in on, what are the things you should spend all your effort on, instead of trying to cover every task possible out there. So what Party Matrix does is it takes that Eisenhower Matrix and puts it into a software form that is very easy to use and very easy to communicate. So when you create a task in Party Matrix, you don't just put it in a list. Instead, you put it into one of these 4 general buckets. Do now. That's the important urgent. Plan. Those are the important but not urgent. Delegate. Those are the things that's urgent, but perhaps not important enough for you to do, but maybe somebody else can do it for you. And then lastly, you shouldn't have anything that's not important and not urgent. Instead, you have what's called the inbox, which is your repository of all the things that you could be working on. And then from there, decide where it fits within the bigger picture. So what Matrix does is it makes you think about where you can spend your effort and time to make the most impact. Here's where the magic happens. Imagine if you right now spend some time writing down the things that you have to do, and instead of putting in a list, you put into these 4 buckets. Now ask your coworkers to do the exact same thing. Your manager, for example, your colleagues that you work closely with, your direct reports, or if you work with external people, get some clients or external parties to do the same exercise. Then guess what? Get together and compare notes, right? If your priority list matches exactly what your manager's priority list are, which matches exactly your direct reports, then that's perfect. You're the rare unicorn out there who has complete alignment on everything. But here's the thing, once in a while, you will find a discrepancy. Something that you think is important, your manager does not think is important, or something your manager does not realize is important is actually important. And that's where the value of Pretty Matrix comes in, which is to surface up these misalignments in priorities. And if you find one discrepancy a week or one discrepancy a month, that's sufficient to drive so much value because we end up working on the right things for that reason. And so the way I convey this is, imagine if you're walking around the office and you see a floating quadrants over everyone's head, right? If you do that, that's how you use Proto Matrix correctly. So everyone has this floating matrix over their head that shows everyone else what their priorities are. And then you just have a conversation whenever you find that mismatch. So think about it from that perspective for a second. And I hope that, when you come out of Proto Matrix and you're using it to the fullest potential, that you're looking at from that exercise standpoint. So the 4-quadrant Eisenhower Matrix create alignment because it forces you to prioritize from the beginning. So you're not messing around. You're not creating a list and then just mark things off at the top or at the bottom. Instead, you're spending all this effort prioritizing it so then you can focus on the right things and then being able to communicate that to everybody else so you're on the same page. Success from using Proto Matrix isn't about what finding everyone agrees on. It's discovering disagreement on what should be a priority when it isn't. So one of the exercises that I encourage customers to do is when you have your team meetings, project Proto Matrix onto your big screen, right? So what that means is you share it either in a team call or you put it onto the projector so then everyone can look at it and see, okay, I see that these are our priorities. Let's talk about the ones that's in quadrant 1. So a couple of tips at a high level, and then I'll jump into the product. First, if you're a manager, create a project for each of your team staff meetings and screen share during the meetings. If you're managing multiple sites, so for example, if you have multiple responsibilities that you're working on, create a project for each of the site or location. Then you can have the appropriate people in each of those projects, so then everyone who's working on that specific site or location know what the priorities are. If you're trying to create some specific training program or initiative, then create a project for each of those initiatives. So for example, let's just say if you have a quarterly growth project, right, that you're responsible for, create a project for that. And then if you're responsible for another initiative, create another project for that. The reason you want to do that is then you can track everything within the context of that particular initiative or that particular project. If you're a business owner, then create a project for each of your departments. So then when you log into Proto Matrix and you look at the list of all the things you have to do, you know exactly what everyone else is working on. And you know exactly what the priorities are for your marketing team, your engineering team, your customer success, your sales team, and all that. Having that visibility is so powerful without having to have a meeting just to know what's going on. And then lastly, if you're an individual contributor, then create a project for your own goals to use for your promotion requests, as an example. So almost for all of us, all of us will benefit from creating a project for our own goals. So for me personally, I have a project for my own goals, and within that, I track the things I want to do, and I track the things that I would like to do this quarter, this month, this year. And it's very easy for me to lose sight on the things that matter, but having a project to remind me of my goals is so tremendously helpful. I do want to mention that the webinars are recorded and posted on our website at affluence.com/webinars. And then also the other recordings that we have are available upon request. So feel free to reach out to me if you need the languages. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the product demo here and try to walk you through this and put this into practice. Here I have my Matrix open. So as you can see, Matrix uses the 4-quadrant front and center, right? So every single project that I have has these 4 quadrants in it, and every task that I create fits within these 4 quadrants. So on the left-hand side here, these are my list of projects. And so in my actual work account, I have something like 300 projects. And so I don't think you have to be scared about creating more projects. It's just a way of organizing all the information that you have. But here you can see that I have a couple of star projects. My team priorities, that's a project where I would share with other people, and so everyone can be on the same page. I have a personal priorities. These are my personal tasks. I have my goals for 2024, and then I have maybe a project to track like customer leads or something like that. And so obviously these are just examples, but for you, you can think about what are the things you care about, right? So what are your personal goals? It could be something related to fitness. It could be something related to getting promotions, etc. So you can think of a project for each of those, and then you can track the tasks that you do within that perspective. In the middle are 4 quadrants. I have the do now, do later, and then instead of actually in this example, I actually changed the name of quadrant 3. Instead of having delegate, I changed it to resources. And then finally, I still have my inbox here. On the right-hand side is my project details. And so this is my name, the name of my project, the fact that I star it, and these are the team members in my project, and then these are the quadrant names. And so I can actually customize these quadrant names, and then I can change the color as well. Matrix offers a lot of flexibility when it comes to customizing Matrix. In fact, we have over 1,000 different templates that we make public for all our customers. So if you're looking at using Matrix for any specific scenario, there's likely a project template that we have already to address that specific needs. And it's just a matter of customizing the quadrant names and then tracking the right tasks so then you can actually leverage Matrix for those specific purposes. So let me show you how to create a task in Matrix. So let's just say I want to go ahead and follow up with webinar participants. Okay, so this is something that's actually a very obvious task I have to do. So that's how, as an example, how I can create a task. But one of the things I could do in Matrix is actually I can type the due date directly here. So I can say due tomorrow 2 p.m. And what Matrix does is it actually uses natural language, and it takes this due tomorrow at 2 p.m. and sets the due date for me in my local time zone. So what this means is if you're using Matrix in your respective time zone, Matrix will capture that and set these due dates relative to that. So you could say due in 2 weeks, due in 3 days, due in 2 hours, etc. Now, after I created this task, it opens what's called the item details. Within the item details, I can modify and update these tasks as needed. So for example, I can change the task name here. I can star this task. As you can see, if I star the task, it pops it to the top of my list. So the way I look at star task is it's a way to ensure that I'm tracking the most critical things that I need to work on. So within a project, I recommend maybe 5 to 10 star tasks at most, because if you star everything, then everything's important and urgent. So then nothing is important and urgent, right? So star the tasks that are active, star the tasks that matter. Below that, you have quadrants. You can click, icons. You can click on icons here, able to select an icon that may be reflective of the task name. So if you have a lot of different tasks, you can look at icons as a way to visualize the type of task that you have. And so when you choose an icon, you can use the icons to sort later, or you can filter across your entire party matrix to find, tasks related to travel or tasks related to emails, etc. And then one of the areas that I've seen success in is actually using the color coding here. So then you could say this task is red, which means behind schedule, or yellow, which is at risk, or green, which is on schedule. So the use of icons is completely optional, but it's helpful for those who are very visual, and it's helpful if you're trying to organize the information. Below this, you have owner. So for example, every task has an owner input matrix. In this case, when I created this task, it puts me as an owner. But let's just say if I need to delegate to another person, I simply click on the avatar and change the person here. So now this other person will be responsible for the task. They'll get a notification around it. And then when they log into the per matrix, they see that, hey, I have this task that's coming up that's due tomorrow at 2 p.m. And then finally, to the right of that, you have progress, efforts, reminders, and due dates. And so you saw how I set the due dates, but there's a difference between due dates and reminders, and it is a subtle difference, but extremely important. One, due date is when that task is due, and then when that time passes, then that task becomes overdue. Let's just imagine if you have a task and it takes you 3 days to work on, and so you set the due date, for a week from now. But the week comes and you haven't started yet, and now the due date is there, you're obviously not going to get that done because it's going to take you 3 days of work, right? And so if you only set a due date, that's not sufficient. And what happens is that when we get a due date, and if that due date passes, it suddenly becomes the past. And so a lot of us end up forgetting that we're supposed to do that task. And you've probably had experiences yourself, which is you set a due date on something, and then as the deadline approaches, you're like, ooh, I got to work on that. I got to work on that. And then past the deadline, suddenly you have 1,000 other things that you also have to do, and their deadlines are coming up. So therefore, you never get around to it. And now you have something that's overdue and likely important that's completely missed. This happens to all of us. This happens to the best of us. And it doesn't matter because how due dates, how we work is that we tend to be very time centric. And so if we only set due dates, it's not sufficient. So the way reminders works is reminders help remind you of these upcoming tasks. So for example, here, I'm going to go ahead and say, remind me daily. So now what I've just done is I've set a daily reminder for this task. So even if the due date comes and passes, the reminders will send me a message that says, hey, you got to work on this. So for me personally, when I use Pretty Matrix, I always set due dates and I always set reminders on my most important task. And the reason I do that is if the due date passes, I will still get those reminders. And it's a way to trick your brain. All of us, we just have so much bandwidth. And as I mentioned earlier, the urgent things always come first. And so by setting these recurring reminders, they'll surface back up at the top of our list over and over again. So when you say remind me daily, on a daily basis, I'll get a reminder to work on this task. And then if I miss it, it's okay. The next day I'll get a reminder again. So as an example, when I follow with customers, I would typically do in 1 month and then remind me monthly. And you can see how instead of just clicking on this UI, by just typing it right here, I can actually send these commands into Matrix, and Matrix uses the natural language to process that. So I could easily say, remind me weekly, remind me monthly, or I can say, remind everybody daily, remind everybody weekly, etc. So when we talk about the most important features in Matrix, I want to emphasize to you, due dates and reminders are absolutely crucial, right? The quadrants works great for prioritizing tasks. The due dates and reminders works great for helping you understand what's urgent. So you need both of those dimensions to work together. Below that, you have the chat, which is where you have a history of all of these. And as you can see, that's where I can type commands. But also, if I work with others, it's where I can send messages back and forth. And then you have the notes section, which is where you can actually add subtasks or information around the task itself. And there's this really cool thing called Fill with AI. What Fill with AI does is it takes the task that you have and help you come up with the subtask or the description for it. And so as an example, I'll go ahead and click on Fill with AI here. As you can see, actually the subtasks here are built out for me, right? And so now, instead of having to type this by myself, you can use our intelligence to actually build out these subtasks. And so you can think of how many ways you can save time and effort by creating tasks, and then instead of having to type out all the details, click on our Fill with AI feature to write the subtask, and then you can edit the subtask as needed. And what's nice about this too is if you're assigning this to another person, then they also get the details around what they need to work on. And then as you update and mark these subtasks as done, it actually updates the progress as well. So if you have 5 tasks and you get 2 out of 5 done, it's 40%. And then after that, you have the resources section, which is where you can upload files, documents, links, emails related to this task. Now, the way to think about resources is a way to capture everything that's relevant. So as an example, let's just say if one of my tasks is to follow up with webinar participants, then a resource would be the list of attendees, right? And so that could be a document that I upload, but I can also just link it to the SharePoint version of that document instead of actually just uploading this document. And then also when I write the email that I send to customers, I can upload that email into here as well. So now I have a record of it. And then if a coworker needs to go and review what's been sent to whom, they have that all in the resources section. I want to put an aside here too, which is one of the things that we're doing is taking this information and we can help you synthesize it using, again, artificial intelligence to give you a summary related to every single item that you have. So this is something that is so valuable because it can actually help you onboard new people or transfer a task to a colleague. So if you're interested in that capability, reach out to us because that's something that we're working on. Okay, so this is your item details, and that's within the quadrants. And let's just say I created this task here. Now I want to move it to quadrant 1. Everything is drag and drop. It's very, very simple to move things in Matrix. I'm going to switch gear a little bit and talk to you about how you can see the information that you need. So as you can see, this is the quadrant, but Matrix also has views. So for example, I can go to list view. Essentially, it shows the tasks that I have, but in a list. And I still can sort by quadrants. I can still sort by the icons, by owner, by name, by modified date, by due dates, etc. What I find the list view useful for is a way for me to see what are the things that are overdue. Any task that's overdue has a red color next to it. So it's very easy for me to spot that. And then from here, I can also click on this multiple selection and I can select all the tasks or I can select multiple tasks and then change the due dates or move them across projects in bulk. So this is it's sort of like an Excel sheet equivalent, as you will. Then you have the calendar view. And so these are tasks that have due dates associated with them. So earlier, you see how I created this task here and I have a due date for it, right? And actually, I can actually drag and drop it to change the due date as needed. And so anything that has a date in it would show up in the calendar view. And then you have the Gantt chart view, which is essentially the same information, but across much larger time scale. So my recommendation typically is that, the calendar is good for seeing tasks that are due this week or next month, etc. But then the Gantt chart view is for you to see things that are due across 3 months, 6 months. And then within Matrix, you can actually build dependencies from one task to another by using the resources section. And so, for example, if I go to resources here, I can click on this and then I can link an existing item. And then I can say that, this task is blocked by, this task blocks, or this task is caused by. And so if you're a project manager, Matrix lets you build all of those dependencies and they'll show up in your Gantt chart here, which you can print or take a screenshot of and put it into your presentation. The last 2 view is the feed view, which is full history, and then the reporting view, which gives you a sense of everything that's happening within this project. Again, if you're a team manager and you have a lot of folks working on many different things, the Matrix report view gives you visibility on the burn down diagrams, how things are happening, etc. So these are the different views here. On the left-hand side, you have a couple of other views. Earlier, I talked about the people-centric view. Well, that's what the one-on-one is. The one-on-one lets me go and see everything I have to do in common with another coworker. So if you're a manager and you have 5 or 6 direct reports, it's a struggle if you have to click through every project to know what it is they're working on, right? Instead, you go to the one-on-one view, select the person, and now you see all the tasks that you and that person has in common across all of your Matrix. It is so powerful. It is one of my favorite views when trying to figure out what it is that my coworkers are working on, or what it is that I owe to them that I have to do for them, or what it is that they owe to me that they have to do for me. And so it's a nice way to see all that. And then not only that, you can actually click Add Shared Task directly from this view. So it allows you to create a task directly from here. It automatically assigns it to the other person, automatically add you as a follower, so you get updates on it, and then you can choose what project it goes in directly from this one-on-one view without having to leave it. And what I like about it is if you have a lot of one-on-one meetings with your coworkers, one of the challenges I've seen over and over again is that someone will say, oh, hey, let's do this, let's do that, right? And then 2 weeks later, you catch up again, and then the person said, oh, I never wrote it down. And so then you don't get those things done. Well, the one-on-one view here takes that excuse out, because when you're having that meeting, just open up the one-on-one with that person, add the share task directly here. Now it's on everyone's calendar, and then yeah, at least you've tracked those tasks, and then you can prioritize them as needed. And as you can see on the left-hand side, there's a couple of other views that are actually pretty important. So I'm going to go ahead and go to what's called the home view. I talked about the alerts, and I talked about due dates and reminders and so forth. Well, all of that come together in the alert section here in the home view. The alerts are essentially things that require your attention. So for example, if I have a task and it's due, well, it pops up in here in the alerts. If I have a task and I've set recurring reminders, it'll pop up here in the alerts over and over again, right, to ensure that I work on it. So for me, on a daily basis, I get a few dozen new alerts every day. These are things that are relevant to me, either tasks that I own or tasks that I follow. And then I can go through this, click on them, and essentially, if I get to 0, that means I've looked at everything that requires my attention. But sometimes you can actually have to go and clear all the notifications, and then you'll be on a clean slate. One of the questions I've heard customer ask is, how do I know what I need to work on, right? How do I know what's important to me right now? Well, when you go to the home view here and you look at the alert section, it shows you the things that is essentially requiring your attention. But then you can also go to the other views, such as the agenda view, that shows you all the things that you have on your plate from a time-centric point of view across all of your Pretty Matrix. And then you can also go to My Items. Essentially, these are all the tasks that you have across all of your projects. So Pretty Matrix essentially allows you to take every information that you have and sort it and show it and filter it and all that in ways that actually is most conducive to your specific needs within that context. And so I want you to remember that the quadrants are very important for prioritization, but consuming those information, you can use it in many different forms. Some people love dates, some people love calendars, some people love lists, and so Pretty Matrix is able to do all of those things. But this is also one place where you can actually print out your list, and you can also sort by items that you follow or items that you own. And then lastly, from a view standpoint, you have what's called the search view. So I call this the master view because it is one place that you can find every single piece of information that you need across your entire Pretty Matrix. So when you go to search view, instead of showing tasks within a quadrants, it shows you every single item that you have across every single project, right? And when you go to filter up here, you can choose what are all the things that's overdue, what are all the things that are my items that's due this week, and you can actually change these views and then save it as a custom filter. So as you become more proficient with Pretty Matrix, I want you to know that Pretty Matrix will let you find anything that you need to build your report. So you can find out what are all the things I finished last quarter. Imagine if you're trying to build your performance review for this month or this quarter, you can go to here, change this to finish projects, finish items, and then you can get all the tasks that you finish within a certain time span. And it is so powerful because it saves you time and effort, and you can actually build summaries from that. Okay, let me show you how to create project, because I talked about projects. And so to create a project, you simply click plus project here, and you have several options. The first is a blank project. So if you click on blank project, you can create a project with whatever name that you want. You can choose some basic templates, you can choose some color coding, etc., and just simply click create. But you can also create projects several other ways. The first is public templates. Here, you can choose from a list of templates that we have. Now, our full list of templates is completely exhaustive. As I mentioned, we have 1,000 or more different templates available. But in this case, you can go to public templates, search for a few different templates that we have that are somewhat popular, such as the 30, 60, 90-day template, right? So if you're a manager, you want to have a 30, 60, 90-day plan every quarter, right? And so this is a fantastic way to start that. Or you can actually choose My Templates. Every time you create a project in Matrix, you can also turn that project into a template. Let me give you some examples why. Let's just say if you build out a client onboarding process, you can go and build a Party Matrix, create all the tasks in it, then you can save it as a template. So now when you launch a new project, instead of creating everything from scratch and having to retype those tasks again, you can actually choose from that template. All the tasks gets recreated for you. And then not only that, all the due dates get propagated automatically when you choose the start date. It is so useful if you have recurring processes. Similarly, if you have an employee onboarding process or you have anything that reoccurs on a weekly or monthly or quarterly basis, or even your goals for the year, right? So the My Template section is a way to broadcast that information and ensure that you don't have to repeat your work. The last option is create with AI. Again, this is one of those areas where we're leveraging artificial intelligence to help you. Simply type in your goal and then click next. So as an example, maybe one of your goals could be, I want to get a promotion this year. Or one of your goals might be, I want to improve my fitness. Or your goal might be, I want to build out the list of action items that I need to work on to fulfill a specific need for a client, right? And the more specific you are, the more specific the outcome will be for these projects. Simply type in your goal and click next. Our artificial intelligence solution will build out the tasks for you, set some due dates for you, and then you can go from there and pick and choose what you think is actually useful. It's a pretty neat capability, and we're improving it all the time. And then not only that, we're actually helping taking some of this information that you have and building reports and help you make sense out of it. So if you're interested in more of those things, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to explain both our current product and then our future roadmap as well. Okay, so that's how you can create projects. Party Matrix also has a really robust CSV capability. So you can import all your tasks from any existing systems. You can also export all your Party Matrix into CSV as well. We know that Excel and all that is very, very useful for a lot of clients. And so therefore you can actually export your tasks from Party Matrix into CSV format. Then you can build your fancy reports as needed. Okay, so that's how you create projects in Matrix, and then that's how you create it. That's how you create tasks. That's how you delegate. That's how you update it. I want to switch gear a little bit and talk about email management. So if you happen to use Outlook, Matrix has one of the best integrations with Outlook. So let me give you an example. Let's just say if I get an email, one of the challenges that you might face from an email standpoint is if you cannot answer that email today, but you want to make sure that you enter that email at some point, right? A lot of us, what we do is we flag that email, or we say, remind me or something like that. They have that capabilities now in Gmail and so forth. The problem is that if you set that and then you miss it, guess what? You're going to completely forget this email. If you have 5 flag emails, that's okay. But if you have 50 flag emails, you're going to lose track of all those flag emails as well. So instead, by using the Party Matrix extension, you can actually turn email into a task and be able to prioritize it and delegate it as needed. The way it works is the following. You go to the apps here and then choose Party Matrix, turn email into task. So if you don't have this yet, click on Add Apps and find that option. So when I choose that Party Matrix for Outlook, I can prioritize email or I can open Party Matrix. So I'm going to go ahead and choose prioritize email. What this does, it opens the bright panel that allows me to turn this email into a task by clicking capture email here. It takes the item subject and put that as an item name here. And then I can choose what project it goes in. I can choose what quadrant it goes in. I can assign it to another person. I can set a due date. and then I can actually click capture email here. Now it creates a task. So now suddenly, if you have a very important email, you can ensure that you have the proper due dates. It's properly prioritized in the right quadrants in the right project. And then after you click capture email, you can actually set recurring reminders to ensure that you get back to this email. Protomatrix takes that email and also upload it as an email file. So then if you happen to assign it to a coworker, they can open that email and respond to it as needed. And then if you happen to be on another computer, another platform, you can open that email and respond to it as needed, right? And not only that, by adding it to the resources section, it creates one single place to capture all of these needs that you have. So the way it works with Protomatrix is it's all about context, right? If you think about context, it means what's relevant. So the email might be relevant to the task, the presentation, the invoice, the documents, et cetera, et cetera. So Protomatrix lets you bring all those things together into here. But here's another neat features in Protomatrix that I haven't seen anywhere else, which is the ability to attach multiple emails to an existing task. So instead of prioritize email, I can open Protomatrix, and now what I can do is I can search for a Protomatrix task, and I can hover over that task and attach this email to that existing task. So if you work with external clients, for example, and the client sends you a follow-up email, right? You don't want to go and create another task from it. Instead, you can attach the email to existing task. Again, what happens is that you now have multiple things in one central place. And so if multiple coworkers are working on this, you have similar context. Imagine if instead you forwarded this email to a coworker, and then you get a new email from the customer and you forward that to another coworker. Now you've just created multiple email chains and nobody knows what's going on. So instead, by being able to attach multiple things, multiple emails into one single Protomatrix action item, you have everything within context. So powerful and very underrated. The other thing that you can do with Protomatrix 2 is to use what's called our inbox. So if you go back to your Protomatrix here and you go to your inbox, you have a secret inbox address. Every single user of Protomatrix has a secret inbox address. What happens is you can copy that address, save it as a contact in Protomatrix, and then you can actually send an email to that inbox address to create tasks. Or you can forward an email, right? So for example, I can actually forward any email that I have to that inbox address. Let me give you an example. When I'm out and about, I'm on my phone, and on my phone, I use Apple Mail instead of Outlook, but I save my Protomatrix inbox as a contact. So I have an important email. Instead of just flagging it or marking it as unread, I click forward and then I send it to my inbox. And then in the item, in the subject here, in the body, I would say due in 2 weeks, remind me weekly. And what happens is Protomatrix will process this as commands. And now I've just turned an email that I got on Apple Mail into a task. I've set a due date and I've set weekly recurring reminders to ensure that I get that email done. Okay. It is very, very powerful way to make sure that you're on top of your emails. In fact, I could also assign to, and then I can type in, the person's email address. So my coworker's email address, for example, and each line that I type here, I can that gets processed as a command. So instead of just forwarding the email to somebody, I'm able to add all this additional context around it. And then the other thing I want to mention too is every single project in Protomatrix has an email address as well. So this allows you to build all sorts of fancy rules that help you organize your information as you need. And then while we're still in the Microsoft topic, I want to show you our Microsoft Teams integration. So if you use Microsoft Teams, it's a no-brainer to install Protomatrix for Teams. So all you have to do, click on apps, search for Protomatrix for Teams. We're one of the best-selling applications in the Teams app store. And so if you go to Protomatrix here, you can pin it. And once you pin it, you have full access to the entire Protomatrix within Teams. What I like about this is you don't have to switch contexts, right? So you don't have to open up Protomatrix. You don't have to go to our web application. You don't have to open our desktop application. Instead, if you're spending a lot of time in Teams, you can actually access that entire Protomatrix in here. And then the other thing that we do is we actually deeply integrate with a lot of features in Teams, such as the chat. So you can see when the chat section here, I can actually click on this plus, I can choose Protomatrix, and I can attach tasks directly here. Or I can install the one-on-one view, and now I have the one-on-one view with my coworker. So if you use Teams and you have a group of people that you work with constantly, simply go here, click on plus, add a tab, add Protomatrix, choose the one-on-one view, select the person, and now you don't have to open Protomatrix, you don't have to select a project, and you don't have to select the one-on-one view. Instead, this one-on-one view tab is available for you in every conversation you have. And it selects the person and remembers the person. And so you're able to have your meetings with your direct reports, assign tasks directly from here. This will save you so much time and effort and still have one central place to track everything that you need to do. Protomatrix also lets you convert any conversation that you have with somebody into a task as well. So you can see how if you just hover over this, click on the ellipsis and click create PM item, what that does is allows you to actually create a task directly from here without having to go into Protomatrix. So all we're trying to do is make it as simple and as easy as possible for you to create tasks, to follow up, to ensure that you're capturing everything that's important. And I hope you realize that at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is to create one central source to track all your priorities and then build to surface that up as needed. There's multiple other integrations with Microsoft, including pulling in Planner, including integrations with Edge, including integration with Microsoft Copilot, workflow automations, and so forth. That's beyond the scope of today's webinar, but I want you to also know that Protomatrix is pretty much available for you as you grow with it, right? So as you expand your usage of the system, Protomatrix will just fit right in and integrate even more with everything that you do. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my presentation to try to wrap this up here. All right. So a couple of things. If you do nothing else, make sure you sign up for Protomatrix. If you use our Teams and Outlook, you can actually install Protomatrix for those extensions. In fact, you can access the entire Protomatrix application within Outlook as well, just like what I showed you in Teams. If you are just looking to create a couple projects, I would actually create a project that highlight your top priorities, and then of course your project for personal priorities, and then your project for goals. I also strongly encourage you to invite your coworkers to do the same exercise, which is to create a project of their priorities, write down the things that they consider to be priorities, and then start comparing notes, right? Just doing that simple exercise will show you all the discrepancy that you have and create alignment that you didn't know existed or not exist. If you're ambitious, create a project using the AI so to generate your goals. So my recommendation is to create a project, an AI project for something you truly care about, whether that's improving your sales, improving your operations, or getting a promotion, whatever it is. Use the AI to generate those goals and then adapt the output there to your specific needs. And then also, if you create a team priority project, invite your team members. So if you're a manager, literally project and screen share your party matrix for your team onto the big screen. It is so powerful when you have something tangible to look at. So think of party matrix as a way to put context into all these conversations that you have. The last thing you want to do is you're in a meeting, you're talking about all these different goals and so forth without having anything to show. Protomatrix helps you show those priorities in a tangible form, and then when you have disagreements, you have something to pick at, which is key. Make sure you use Protomatrix to track your high impact tasks. If you have decisions you need to make sure that you track those. Use Protomatrix as a communication tool between your manager and your team members. So when I say communication tool, I mean it as a way to communicate your priorities to others and a way for others to communicate their priorities to you. You don't want to have a meeting just to be aligned. You want to be able to log into Matrix at any point in time and see exactly what everyone's priorities are. And then lastly, use Matrix to manage your personal individual goals. As I mentioned, Matrix started out as a way for individuals to prioritize their task. And that's something that's been way more than a decade ago. That's what the Matrix software first started at. And then what happens is Matrix evolved into a way for teams to work together. But it always starts with you as an individual. So make sure that you do that. And what success with Matrix should look like. On a personal level, you should be checking Matrix every single week to remind you of your goals. Remember, creating a project for your goals and then setting those recurring reminders and so forth is so powerful. And then you also have one central place to track all your priorities. If you're finding that you're using another application to write down your task and so forth, you should change that. Because if you write down your tasks and goals and all that in multiple places, you're going to lose track of all of that, right? You want one central place to track everything. And then on a team level, everyone on the team should understand and are aligned on key tasks. Again, everyone should be able to log into Matrix and see their goals, their priorities, and then their coworkers' priorities. If you have important email, make sure that you use our email prioritization system. That using the inbox address lets you work with any email system. So you could use Gmail, you could use any of your Apple Mail or any of your favorite email management system, and you can just forward Matrix as needed. And then be able to see everyone's priorities in real time asynchronously. You don't have to have a meeting to know what everyone's working on. And that's pretty much it. If there's any questions that you have, you can send them in the chat here, or you can also send me an email afterwards. Or if there's any specific requests or whatever, we're here to help you. Hopefully this was helpful. My goal in all of this is on a weekly basis, these webinars are meant to provide you some context to understand what you can do with Matrix, but it's all for you. So if there's any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you. Okay, so I have a question on how to link planner task. More than happy to show you how to do that. So if you go back into Matrix here, so Matrix has what's called connectors. So let me see if I can find that for you here. So if you go to account here, and then you go to connectors, what happens is I'm going to go ahead and send this link in the chat here. So Matrix has multiple connections with other applications, but these are the basic ones that works right out of the box. If you go here, you can actually do a one-way synchronization with Jira, Outlook Calendar, To-Do, Planner, Planner for Teams, Azure DevOps, Zoom, and Zendesk, etc. So what happens is all your tasks from Planner would be pulled into Matrix as separate projects, and then when you update those tasks, it will update Matrix. And then we have what's called Power Automate and Workflow Automations. So if you go back to Microsoft Teams, you click on Apps, you can search for workflows, and actually, I'll just search for Matrix. Here, when you search for Matrix, down here you can see that we actually have workflows where you can actually do an if this then that, right? So for example, you could say if a planner task gets updated, then you call Microsoft Power Automate, which then updates Matrix, etc. So that's something that you can build on your own as needed. Great question. Are there any other questions? Okay, again, thank you all for being here today. And as I mentioned, I'll send out the recording afterwards. We also have a lot of other topics that I've covered, as well as other recordings, such as email management masterclass, or using the Matrix template system and customizing that to your specific needs. And then also, if you're interested in our AI capabilities, especially around summarizing your tasks, summarizing your project, or helping you offboard or onboard new employees, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to show you our capabilities there. Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Bye-bye.